The topic of developing spoken fluency is something that I've seen pop up now and again on the language side of YouTube, and it is also something that is really quite underdeveloped in most people's language skills, myself included. It does tend to be the skill that people train the least or don't know how to train effectively. This is where this video comes in. As always, as a part of my Science Says series here I have going up on YouTube, I took a look at the research surrounding this topic and I've picked out a paper that gives good insight and clarity and also some good strategies that can help you and myself improve our spoken fluency. The strategies that I'm going to be discussing in this video can be adapted to work on by yourself if you don't want to have a tutor or a language partner. Stay until the very end of the video where I'll discuss how to do that. However, these methods do work better when with a partner or with a language tutor. HelloTalk is a great app which you can find native speakers to form a language exchange partnership with. I've done that myself with German and with Mandarin Chinese. Really an incredible resource to have as a language learner. And then there's also italki to find language tutors, which I have mentioned on this channel before. You can see the description for the link towards that. I also want to say that this paper here that I'm going to be discussing today will be found linked in the description if you want to read it for yourself. If you don't want to bother yourself reading that, don't worry, I'll be discussing everything important in this video so you can just sit back, relax and enjoy. So yeah, with that all out of the way now, we can get started. First of all, in order to understand why these methods and techniques that I'll be discussing work, we first need to understand what problems they solve and how they make developing the spoken fluency easier. This video is more specifically going to focus on developing speaking competence. This includes both speaking fluency and speaking accuracy. Speaking fluency involves speaking without pauses or so much hesitation, and speaking competence basically just relates to the extent to which the language you're producing matches the correct version of what you should have said. Basically, there are three factors or three things that affect the ability to speak fluently and accurately. The first one being cognitive factors. This involves conceptualization, basically dealing with thinking about what information can be chosen to express the meaning. Next is formulation, where the speaker has to choose which words and which order they come in and which grammatic structures to use to express this meaning. And then finally is articulation, basically just the ability to produce the sounds to get the meaning across, your pronunciation if you will. All of these are cognitive factors. The articulation or the pronunciation ties in quite heavily with the linguistic factors, but I won't dive into too much detail into the linguistic factors in this video as I don't think they're too relevant to what you want to get out of watching this video. But you can read them for yourselves, again, link in the description to the paper. Lastly, there's something called affective factors. I have a video talking about a specific affective factor, I'll link it up here, namely anxiety in language learning. So if you want to know more about that, I won't be talking about it here, but you can look at the video linked up here again or in the description to find out more about that. This paper assessed the English language speaking competence of 100 Chinese students, and as you can see, the results were not ideal. Therefore, based off three different models of teaching speaking skills and proficiency, they formulated their own 4-step process to developing speaking skills and developing their fluency and accuracy, basically speaking competence. If you are interested in reading about these named techniques or models individually, they are briefly described in the paper, or you can just look them up on Google if you're that curious. Basically, all of these methods touch on the same themes and concepts. I have adapted these methods alongside the 4-step approach that the paper has concluded to provide for you, and for myself obviously, because I'll be using these techniques as well, to provide for us a really good approach to developing language fluency. The activities or strategies or whatever you want to call them are broken down into 3 stages: the pre-speaking, the while speaking, and the post-speaking phases or activities. Without any preparation, it's quite common for the speaker to feel very stressed and very nervous, and find it very difficult to deal with all of these 3 processes that I've mentioned before: the conceptualization, the formulation, and the articulation all at the same time. Thus, if you give the speaker time to prepare before having to actually produce any spoken language, then their fluency will dramatically increase, because they will have time to organize their thoughts and just generally reduce their anxiety in this situation. So if you have a tutor or a language partner, I suggest picking a topic to discuss for the tutoring session or the language exchange partnership call or whatever. Yeah, I would suggest you picking a topic for this to discuss. Then you can ask them to provide you with some relevant vocab, or maybe your topic is about some cultural thing that maybe some background research will be really beneficial for you to have. Having built up your vocab and your knowledge a bit of this topic, it'll make forming and expressing your ideas so much easier. In addition to doing this, try find some native or authentic content to listen to or to watch, or maybe if you're not at the level to properly digest this native content, perhaps try find some videos or some podcasts directly aimed at language learners about the topic that you want to discuss. This way you can acquire language relevant to that topic. Acquire language, what does that mean? If you haven't heard of this before, you don't really want to know what it means, did a video there discussing the difference between acquiring languages and learning them. It's very important, and I'll probably be referencing it quite a bit in future videos, so I do suggest you check that out if you haven't already. So at this stage you shouldn't be as nervous as you've prepared a little bit before about what you're going to be speaking about. In this while speaking activity phase, it is quite difficult to focus both on your accuracy and your fluency at the same time. So these while speaking activities generally tend to only focus on fluency and expressing your ideas and getting your meaning across. So there's this technique called the 4-3-2 method or technique, and it's really simple, and it sounds like a really good way to improve your spoken fluency. So you've chosen the topic beforehand about whatever you want to discuss, and you've gotten the vocab, you've gotten time to organize your thoughts. At this stage you want to try and then speak about this topic for 4 minutes, then try to do it again in 3 minutes, and then in 2. So talking about the same thing 3 times in a row makes the speaker more familiar about the topic and confident in getting their point across, getting their meaning across without hesitating so much or stumbling. So thus you'll be able to do it in less time and will have dramatically increased your fluency about talking, or your fluency in talking about this topic. This repetition will also decrease the cognitive stress, those processes that I discussed earlier in the video, your conceptualization, formation and articulation. Doing these all at the same time is very difficult spontaneously on the spot. But if you've had practice, done it 3 times, let's say, it should be much easier, and you'll actually have increased your accuracy along the way also. So now that you've prepared the topic, organized your thoughts, spoken about the topic for only 10 minutes, 3 times in 10 minutes, really not that long, you can now focus on form and your accuracy about this topic. This can be done through corrective feedback from your tutor or your language partner, because they will have heard the same thing 3 times in a row from you. So they should have picked up some mistakes, if any. Most likely there are. So they should have picked up on these mistakes throughout your little speeches, and then they can give corrective feedback and help advise you on ways to say it more clearly or more native-like and increase your accuracy that way. So after they've given you all of this advice, what should you do then? I probably suggest you take this advice on board, study it, and either at the end of the session try and speak about the same topic with all of this advice soaked in. If this isn't something that you're comfortable, maybe you need more time to study the new grammar or whatever, maybe repeat the same topic at the start of the next lesson before, or the next study session with your partner, before you then move on to the next topic. Spaced repetition is always just a really good strategy to help ingrain new knowledge into your brain anyway. But then what do you do if you don't have a language partner yet, or you don't want one and you're not in the position to get a language tutor? This is a very tough question, and if you do want a full video about how to develop language fluency on your own without any help from anybody else, then maybe I will do one in the future, but there are some pretty good ones on YouTube as it is. That being said, I will try and adapt the things I talked about before to help you on your own. So here we go. So you can essentially do everything that I mentioned before by yourself to some extent. For example, you can pick a topic that interests you and you want to talk about. You can look up words to help you with that topic. You can look up videos about the topic. You can absorb all of that native material or the videos aimed at language learners to teach you about the topic. You can absorb all of that, watch all of that, learn about all of that yourself. That's fine. Next up, you can record yourself speaking in the 4 minutes to 3 minutes to 2 minutes, the same thing as before. You can do that yourself, record yourself speaking. Then this is where it kind of differs, because you won't have anybody to correct you, so to say. Oh, the sun just came out. Okay, so you don't really have anybody to correct you, so to say. So what I suggest is that you transcribe it yourself. You have recorded yourself speaking about the topic. So next you want to listen to it back, write down what you said, and then look at the transcript in front of you, and then try and pick out any mistakes or anything that you've noticed that you've said incorrectly. Try to pick out yourself, and then once you've done that, once you're happy with it enough, corrected it to the best of your own ability, you can upload it to a website like journally.com. Again, mentioned it so many times before, it's a wonderful resource. You can upload it onto journally.com, and then people there, native speakers there, will correct it for you, and that way you can get some native feedback on your topic. So if you've made it this far into the video, I think maybe you should leave a like and maybe consider subscribing. I don't know, it sounds good to me. Yeah, anyway, I hope you really enjoyed the video and I hope you learned something. That's probably the best thing. Let me know if you're going to adopt any of these strategies into your own language learning schedule or language learning routine. And yeah, so I'll see you next time, guys. Slán bis bald. Basically, there are 3 factors or 3 things that